Thanks for watching Numbskull News, and today we're talking about realignment and the ACC. Now, there's been a lot of speculation that 8 teams can get together, decide to vote, and dissolve the conference, get out of their grant of rights, get out of their TV deal with ESPN, and teams can go to the SEC and Big Ten as they see fit and make the big money. But can this actually happen? Not exactly sure. I looked up, I spent all of 10 minutes looking up a lot of information on that, and it's not easy to find. I don't feel like reading the entire ACC grant of rights. That's a bunch of bullshit that I don't feel like doing. So I'm just going to speculate on shit like everybody else does. Now, first of all, I think the ACC is stuck where they are until 2036. However, we're just going to have a little fun with it. We're going to spitball it. But before I do, it's just very complicated to get out of that deal. I mean, think about it. Does Notre Dame get a vote or not? You know, if they do, I would say, okay, that's probably one you have that wants to get the hell out of there. Now, you can add Clemson and Florida State to that. I think they wouldn't mind getting out of that deal. So that's 3 teams. I think you could talk Miami into it. Miami may have a good landing spot in the SEC or the Big Ten. So that's 4 teams. So you need 4 more. And like I said, that's if Notre Dame actually has the right to vote, to cast a vote. If not, then then you actually need additional 5 teams to vote no. And nobody outside of the 4 big dogs there, and I'm including Notre Dame, I'll go ahead and we'll throw them in, even though I think they would just like to get out of the ACC altogether and just be truly independent. I don't think they'll join the Big Ten, at least not in the foreseeable future. But this is where it gets complicated, you know, because the Big Ten and the SEC, they're not going to add 4 teams apiece from the ACC. There's no way in hell. There's not 8 teams that have that kind of value. There's only a small handful that do. And really, it's Florida State and Clemson. They're the only ones that really have the value. Maybe Miami, maybe, just because they're in a huge market. They have a huge brand. They are a blue blood. Maybe not top tier, not where they used to be. A lot of people said, well, of course, anybody would want Virginia or UNC. I don't know. Is there a big difference between Virginia and UNC and Oregon and Washington? I don't know. Because Oregon and Washington, they get badass ratings. You know, they're in great markets. They're in a good time zone for a late night window. There's a lot of appeal there. I'm sure Virginia gets good ratings. I'm sure UNC gets good ratings. I don't think they outdraw Oregon. You can kiss my ass. There's no way. They definitely don't have the brand recognition of Oregon. Maybe Washington is probably closer to equal with those two. But keep in mind, the Big Ten doesn't want Oregon or Washington. Maybe somewhere down the road, but they're sure not in a hurry to get them. So that's where things get complicated, if you ask me. The only scenario that I could see make any sense at all, the Big Ten and the SEC take 2 teams apiece. All right, that's all they're willing to take. That's only 4 teams. You need another 4 in this scenario where 8 teams can get rid of the ACC. So if they're working together on this deal and they really want to get those teams for whatever reason, you know, it seems to me both conferences are perfectly happy with 16 for the foreseeable future. But like I said, that's no fun. That's no fun at all. So we're going to go ahead and use what all these different channels, comments and message boards and all this bullshit that people have talked for 6 months now, you know, and have a little fun with it. In order to make this work, the SEC and the Big Ten would have to bring in the Big 12 to guarantee another 4 teams a comfortable landing spot. Sure, right now it might be a little less money than what they were getting, but long term, they have a place to go and to play and be relevant. So having said that, let me use a visual aid to make this maybe a little easier. So as I said, you know, Florida and Clemson, They're definitely going to want out. However, how they get split, and we also have to think, why is the Big Ten and the SEC working together? Well, the only reason that they would is to assure themselves of getting at least one of these teams, because in 2036, all right, when these teams become free agents, they can both go the Big Ten, they can both go the SEC. And that's not something that either conference would like to see happen. So therein lies a problem in itself. So how they divvy up the two big dogs, and I'm not including Notre Dame. They may end up in the Big Ten one day, but I'm not including them in this scenario. So how does the Big Ten and the SEC, how they divvy up Florida State and Clemson? Well, we know, the Big Ten would love to have Florida State. And I know the SEC would love to have Clemson. However, does the SEC want the Big Ten to have a footprint in Florida? But I think that's how it would work out. That way each conference knows they're going to get one of the big dogs. All right, next up, Miami. Now this is, where does Miami fall? I mean, does the Big Ten want to say, okay, Miami just goes to the SEC, and now we kind of have a, imbalance as far as recruiting goes? Well, does the SEC want the Big Ten now to have two major schools in some of their prime recruiting ground? Hell no. Now, one possible way this could work is for the Big Ten and the SEC say, okay, Big 12, we're going to give you Miami. That way that keeps the balance correct. Big 12 would love this, by the way. And it also ensures that the Big 12 will take 4 teams. Hey, if you take these 4 teams, one of them that you're going to get is Miami. Of course, that's Big 12 fanboy bullshit right there, but the whole thing is an exercise in fiction. So, screw it. That's the way we'll keep it. Next up, Virginia. Where do they go? So for no good reason at all, I'm going to say they land in the SEC, which means UNC will land with the Big Ten. That's if they decide to split it like this. The SEC might say, you know what, we got to have another team in Florida and take Miami instead of Virginia. Now, a lot of people might speculate out there that, hold on, Virginia and UNC and Miami, they may all say, you know what, we want to be in the Big Ten or the SEC. Screw this. Miami might say, no, there ain't no way in hell we're going to the Big 12. By the way, UNC may say the same thing. Virginia may say the same thing. But really, if you're the Big Ten and the SEC, you can just let whichever team is going to go to the Big 12, hey, you are not coming to the top 2 conferences. We're not going to take you. The only place for you is the Big 12. If you don't want the Big 12, well, the AAC is waiting for you. So you choose what you want. It's either going to be the Big 12 or some group of 5 conference. And that would pretty much solve that problem. So with that out of the way, we got to find 3 more schools for the Big 12. That way, at least 8 have a landing spot, and then you can get rid of the ACC. But first off, Boston College, it's not going to make the cut. Sorry, guys. And we can go ahead and add Syracuse to that mix. I don't see the Big 12 adding them if they had a choice. To me, the Big 12's second choice would probably be something like Louisville. Pretty good football program, really good basketball program, which fits in great with the Big 12 being elite in basketball. So I could see that happening. I think Virginia Tech is probably a pretty easy choice for the Big 12 as well. There have been years they've been damn good in football. Years they've been damn good at basketball. That's a legit program. But this is the part where it gets really difficult. I kind of like the idea of NC State being in the Big 12. I don't have a problem with that. But, what about Georgia Tech? What about Pitt? As far as Wake Forest goes, that would be group of 5 as well. Even though I do very much like their basketball program. And usually Boston College is pretty damn good at basketball as well. So it kind of sucks to lose them if you're the Big 12. But, if you're only taking 4, you got to pick and choose here. Here's a big problem. Duke. All right. Duke and UNC, man, that's one of the greatest rivalries in all the sports. It's one of the oldest. You talk about tradition. That's all the tradition in the world. in college basketball. UNC and Duke, man, it's much must-watch TV every time they play. What if the Big Ten would rather have Virginia, and the SEC would rather have Miami, and UNC is kind of screwed into the Big 12? Well, at that point, they may, okay, if we got to go, then at least let us go with Duke. Then it may be Duke in there. But in this little scenario we're doing, it's AAC time. All of a sudden, they're getting pretty damn good at basketball. So, of course, we got to put Pitt and Georgia Tech somewhere. So, AAC with them as well. But that's what I'm saying, man. This is incredibly complicated because as far as the Big Ten and the SEC go, as far as the teams they won out, I'm not sold that those are the four that they would have. It could easily be this scenario right here. And I know, Tar Heel fans out there, there's no way in hell they go with the Big 12. Well, do you want to go to the Big 12 or do you want to go to the AAC? That may be that may be the deal. And at that point, they may, hey, if we got to go there, like I said, we got to go with Duke. Okay. If you're the Big 12, that doesn't look bad. UNC, Duke, Louisville, and Virginia Tech. In that scenario, everything works out great for the Big 12, however you want to look at it. But of course, you can make it look real easy when you do some bullshit video on YouTube. But, you're talking about timing. The Big 12, they're trying to pull teams out of the Pac-12 right now. So throwing in ACC stuff into the mix, it's about the timing, in the room. If you can get 4 teams out of the Pac-12, 4 teams out of the ACC, that's the perfect scenario for the Big 12 to get to 20. I can see something like that with the SEC, but that's only if they want to get to 18 teams. Do they want to get to 20? Yeah, I mean, I don't see how they do it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't see how they get to 20 teams because I don't see 2 other teams out of the ACC that they want. And I damn sure know that there's no teams in the Big 12 they want. And they're not going out west. They're happy in their location. And if the Big 10 does get Notre Dame, they may want to pair them with Stanford, possibly Washington. And if they don't ever get Notre Dame, then maybe they bring Oregon into the mix. So 2 out of the ACC, 2 more from the Pac-12. But 4 just from the ACC, that wouldn't happen. So, yeah, it would require them working with the Big 12, depending on where the Big 12 is at the time. So this shit is just really complicated for the ACC to just dissolve because 8 teams want them to. If you can find the 8 teams to do it. And the teams that don't get in, do they have a legal leg to stand on to try to get some of that payout, granted rights payout? That's up in the air as well. So, I think people really need to slow down on all this talk about, all these teams are going to get out of the ACC. Man, it ain't that easy to get out of. Not to mention the deal is with ESPN, and they damn sure don't want to lose the ACC right now. They're having a hell of a time trying to get any kind of inventory out of the Pac-12 because they're stupid. So, they don't need to lose that inventory. It's like I said, they're only going to get a certain amount of the schools to go into the Big 12, a certain amount of schools, going to the SEC, and they don't have any rights to the Big 10. It doesn't seem very advantageous for that to happen. I don't think ESPN's in a big old hurry for that to happen. And that's a hell of a court battle and a hell of a lot of money for a court that you may not win to get out of that. I'm gung-ho for, let's get rid of the ACC, but is it likely to happen? No, not at all. Anyway, that's all I got on that. I'll be back with some other crap later. Bye.